Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And it looks like we've hit critical mass. And so we're going to keep putting the agenda and the links into the chat as more people come in. But we wanted to welcome everyone to Rank the Vote Ohio's statewide February meeting. Rank the Vote Ohio is the Buckeye State's first and only nonpartisan nonprofit for ranked choice voting. And we were founded in 2020 by a group of volunteers from all across the state. We were an all volunteer organization until late in 2022, when one of our national partners, Rank the Vote USA, helped us start hiring. And so now we are working on building our infrastructure and operations in order to work toward a ballot initiative for instant runoffs with ranked choice voting in 2024. And so most of you are probably already familiar with what ranked choice voting is, but we like to say that ranked choice voting is a simple upgrade to the way you vote that's already used in Maine and Alaska, where instead of just picking one candidate, you can rank your choices first, second, and so forth. And if no one wins a majority, then the last place candidate is eliminated. And if you voted for them as your first choice, then your vote will simply transfer to your next choice until one of the candidates gets a majority. So it's just like a runoff, but instead of having an entire another election where you have to vote again, we already know who your backup choices are. So that's why we also call it instant runoff voting. This way, more parties and candidates can run, and you have more choice and more voice and more confidence that your vote will actually matter. So we're still seeing lots of people come in. This is great. Please sign in. We have the link in the agenda. And we have some exciting endorsements to announce today, in addition to having our guest speaker, Katie Usalis from RepresentWomen, talking about how ranked choice voting removes barriers to representation. But first, we want to lay out our plan for how we are going to bring ranked choice voting to Ohio. And the biggest challenge that we have right now is education. We are an educational, nonpartisan nonprofit just trying to raise awareness of what instant runoffs with ranked choice voting are, because we know that if you have a 2-minute conversation with someone, then they get it, they understand why haven't we been doing this all along. And so in order to reach as many people in Ohio to tell them about ranked choice voting and get them to buy in, we need to organize. We need to build a viable campaign with people, money, and endorsements. And we're doing this in line with the ranked choice voting playbook that is in our agenda, that was shared with us by Rank the Vote National, that is currently being used in other states as well, because we need to bring ranked choice voting state by state. And so we are Ohioans working here in Ohio in order to build organizational infrastructure, because we need to have a campaign in place in order to collect more than 400,000 valid signatures to get on the ballot. And so we are currently in that organizational phase. In the summer, we and our partners are going to do a viability assessment in order to determine if we are ready to move on to the signature collection phase later in 2023. And it is our hope that we will be in a full campaign mode in 2024. And so in order to do that, we need your help. Please sign up to volunteer, or if you don't have time, please donate. We rely on recurring monthly contributions for our operations. And we are working hard toward meeting our goals. We set off the year planning to set up 5 regional chapters, and we already have 3 that are active in Central Ohio, Northeast Ohio, and Southwest Ohio. We're currently working on identifying leaders and organizers to help us set up more chapters in Northwest and Southeast Ohio. And as part of that, we've been getting a lot of great attention from national partners who are helping us to identify support in and out of state. And they have given us seed funding for a grant to start hiring part-time organizers. And so we're very excited to shift into this new phase where we have our job description in the agenda. We are trying to recruit a geographically and demographically diverse cohort of organizers to help stand up and expand these local chapters, focusing on live outreach and canvassing, because as we organize, it's not enough just to spread the word about what ranked choice voting is. We need people to sign up as supporters to show that they do support us. And even more than that, like we said, we need people, money, and endorsements to help spread the word. We need active volunteers and donations and to speak with groups across the political spectrum to show that this is a broad and nonpartisan coalition. And so as of the end of January, we had 4,100 registered supporters. We had a goal of reaching 6,600 by summer and 10,000 by the end of the year. But with this seed funding for the organizers, we've accelerated our goal to reach 10,000 supporters by summer, because that's when we're doing our viability campaign. So sorry, that's what viability analysis to see if we can move to the next step. And so we need your help bringing people in as registered supporters. We created a new petition page to help people do that online. But of course, the best way is through relational organizing, through word of mouth. And so please leverage your networks and do everything you can to help us. And with that, we are so excited to announce 2 endorsements today, actually partnerships with organizations who have common goals and shared values and are going to work with us to help us achieve our goals. And the first that we are announcing is Veterans for Political Innovation. And we have Eric Bronner, the founder and chief operating officer of Veterans for Political Innovation, with us today to tell us about the organization and how we're going to work together for a partnership. So thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. This is really exciting. Can everyone hear me okay? Quick, yeah, great, awesome. Greetings from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm not in Ohio. One real quick, small Ohio connection. I don't know if anyone else is a fan of the band Over the Rhine from Cincinnati, but their 2-disc set, well, that's how, I'm showing my age here. They have a 2-disc set called Ohio, and it's one of my favorite albums of all time. So, but yeah, this is super exciting to announce the partnership, Veterans for Political Innovation. And I see some of our Ohio state leaders here. If you all want to wave your hand, Cassie and JD. And am I missing anyone else, Cassie or JD?
We have some others that are in the VPI group as well. Melissa Rodriguez. I saw Deb, and I haven't gone through the entire participant group. There's a bunch, but I do want to say thank you to the team for being here. So
yes, absolutely. Because Veterans for Political Innovation really exists to serve state-based organizations like Rank the Vote Ohio. We launched in Wisconsin in 2021. My co-founders, Todd Connor, Dan Biga, and I all had grown distraught over the direction of our country, and in each in our individual ways, we're searching for real solutions. And as most of you know, here on this call, too often, both of our major parties present us with false solutions or quote unquote solutions that really just benefit their own party, their own power and control. So one of the reasons we're so excited about ranked choice voting is it is a structural reform that, as you know, will bring more choices, more voices, and give voters more power. So Kyle mentioned both Alaska and Maine use ranked choice voting statewide. We were excited to be a part of a campaign in Maine to help open the state's primaries. And in Alaska, we're working hard to defend the big win there. And just real quick, if we, Veterans for Political Innovation, had to choose between Maine or Alaska, we support ranked choice voting as an incremental approach. It's a step in the right direction. We're most excited about the Alaska model because that brings real competition to November. Every single race in November in Alaska is now competitive thanks to what we call Final Five voting, which, as most of you probably know, uses instant runoff in the general election, a top 4 open primary followed by the general election with instant runoff voting. So we, in just about 18 months, we have almost 200 volunteers in 38 different states. And our mission is making politics less toxic and our government more functional through reforms that bring more competition to all of our elections. So we're grateful to be partners with Rank the Vote Ohio. I'm grateful for all of our state leaders in Ohio, because once again, we really exist to serve, to bring the veteran voice in as trusted messengers to help amplify and multiply the good work that you're doing in Ohio. So thanks for having us. And Kyle, I'll pass it back off to you.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, JD and Cassie and everyone else from Veterans for Political Innovation who's joining us today. And next, we also want to introduce George Farrell, who is the founder and chairman of BlackPAC, which helps elect conservative Black, Latin, and Asian leaders and supports ranked choice voting. Mr. Farrell, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Kyle, for having me. Can everyone hear me okay? Good. Great. I want to thank you, Kyle, for reaching out to me. My camera's not working that well, but a little bit about BlackPAC. We started in 2014, my wife and I, to help elect more conservative Black, Latin, and Asians. If you look at Congress right now, 535 people, there's only 5 African-American males, no Black females, very few. Well, we just helped elect one from Florida. So we're starting to make a little bit of progress. My main goal is to actually find a conservative Black woman that wants to run for Congress and get the support of the Republican Party, which we have not been able to do. We did just have a victory with Christina Caramo as the chair of Michigan, and I think she would be open to ranked choice voting. So I'll broach that subject with her. She just got elected chair last night in Michigan. So I want to thank you all. If you have time, visit our website, see what we're about. Tell you the truth, it's 2024, and sometimes I hate to have to focus on Black, Latin, and Asians in the United States of America. I wish we were way past this. I wish we were 30, 40 years past where we had to look at race. And I don't like doing it, but unfortunately, if we're going to get this country one nation under God with liberty and justice for all, someone's got to make that fight. And I guess I'm the chosen one to do it. So I'm praying that this is a very successful effort. I'm sure it will be. I'm sure we'll make this country better and stronger if we bring everyone together, regardless of race. So I don't like what I'm doing, but God put me here to do it. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, George, so much. And your organization and your mission really ties in to what we're talking about today with our featured speaker, Katie Usalis, who is going to be talking about how ranked choice voting actually reduces barriers to representation across the political spectrum, regardless of race or gender or ideology. Katie serves as RepresentWomen's Partnerships Director, and in this role, Katie focuses on developing and overseeing program strategies that activate and equip change makers to advance structural solutions to the representation crisis in U.S. politics. She holds a master's degree in international development from the Institute of Barcelona de Estudios Internacionales. Sorry for that pronunciation. The Barcelona Institute of International Studies. I should have practiced this, and I can't believe I studied Spanish and I'm botching it. But before moving to Spain, Katie lived and worked in Myanmar for several years, where her passion for social justice and human rights led her to serve as a program manager and regional inclusion advisor for partnerships across Myanmar and Cambodia. She brings unique experience working in diverse contexts and across language barriers to develop program strategies specifically aimed at removing cultural and institutional barriers to equity. Naturally inclined to systems thinking, she is skilled at turning big visions into tangible strategies, building impactful relationships, and is passionate about the value diversity brings to our work. She strongly believes that fair political representation is a structural catalyst to better policies and a more sustainably just society. In her free time, she loves rock climbing and going on adventures outside, and she grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you so much, and well done on that pronunciation. And to be fair, the name of the school is in Catalan. It's not in Spanish because Barcelona is in Catalonia. So no worries, Kyle. Your Spanish is totally still intact. Thank you so much for having me. It is so fun to speak at a group from my home state, and it's so fun to see the local, cities and towns and everything mentioned in the chat. I think I saw one other Cincinnatian who said, of the people that mentioned where they're coming from. But as Kyle said, I'm from Cincinnati. I was born and raised in Cincinnati. If you're from Cincinnati, you know that you have to say what high school you went to. So I went to Macaulay High School, and I studied at the University of Cincinnati for my undergraduate degree, where I got my degree in special education. And I was a special ed teacher for several years before kind of switching gears a little bit and working more in the disability inclusion context abroad, where, as Kyle mentioned, I was really kind of exposed to the reality that, until these people I was working with, until, a woman with disabilities who was also a woman of color, who was also maybe a religious minority, until that person is the one who's in the political decision-making seat, she was forever going to be struggling to eat and even struggling to, find good jobs, and struggling to be healthy, and struggling to have access to her full human rights. So that's really why I'm really passionate about representation. And I am so excited to be working now in the United States context again. I think the United States is such an important player, like on the global scale, and we have such a potential to be a role model for positive democracy, healthy democracy, representative democracy, and everyone's watching. Like, the world is watching. So I'm really excited to be working on U.S. systems and working to improve. Speaking to people in Ohio, in my own home state. My cousins and aunts and uncles are all still in Cleveland. My parents are still in Cincinnati. I go back, at least once a year, usually multiple times a year. So really happy to be here. Anyways, I'm going to share. I have a couple little slides. My presentation is short and very focused. Do you guys see the full screen version right now? Okay,
yes.
Perfect. Great. Thanks so much. So yes, I am with an organization called RepresentWomen. We have been around doing research on the unique barriers that women face in politics since 2018. And our research has found, that we need more than pipeline strategies. We need more than organizations that are training women to run and encouraging women to run. Those organizations are essential. They're a critical piece of the puzzle, but it's just not enough. And so our research has pointed to, obviously ranked choice voting. That's why I'm here today, as a really, really as a viable, transformative solution to the representation problem. And maybe a lot of you already know this, because I know everyone here is already kind of on board, or at least really curious about ranked choice voting. But in fact, ranked choice voting is actually used across the country in many, many cities across the country until around the 1950s, when it started to be repealed and states started kind of pulling it back and switching to first past the post or winner take all like we have today. And this was, if you think about the timing, this was really kind of when racial tensions were really reaching a boiling point. And in most states, in most cities, they started repealing ranked choice voting because it was electing too many women and too many people of color. And that was, people decided that they weren't ready for that. They didn't want that. So they got rid of ranked choice voting because they knew that it was just being too good. It was working too well at giving us representative outcomes. So it's a really interesting fact about the United States that I think most people don't know, that ranked choice voting is not new to the United States. It was used in a lot of places for many, many years, since the early 1900s until the 1950s. So very interesting. Okay, so this is a chart. This is the 38 countries in the OECD. And as you can see, almost all of our sister countries in the OECD are doing much, much better than us on representation outcomes of women than the United States. And this is not because they have more women running or because they have better women running. It's truly because they have better systems. And I'm actually curious. Let me think here. Let me just check my notes. 1 second. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to actually ask you all. So our research has shown that women face barriers across the whole political lifespan. So when women are running, there's unique barriers there. When it's time to actually win an election, there's unique barriers there. And when women are elected, they face barriers in serving in their parties and doing their job properly. And then being party leaders, there's more barriers there. So I'm gonna, instead of me just telling you all what those barriers are, I'm curious if you have any guesses or what you think some barriers might be. Maybe some of you have worked on campaigns before for a woman candidate, or maybe some of you have worked on campaigns for a person of color and you've kind of experienced it firsthand. So I can't see the chat with my presentation thing set up right now, but if you raise your hand, your face will pop up and I can ask you to share. Any ideas of what the barriers might be, systemic barriers that women face in our winner-take-all system? Any ideas? Kristen said financial. Absolutely. This is one of the biggest barriers in the running process. Women have a harder time raising money, but not only that, they need to raise more money. Our research finds that they need to raise more money to win than their male counterparts. Andy, your hand's raised.
They're often told to wait their turn behind more senior candidates.
Yes, Andy, exactly. When there's more than one person running for a party, it's more often that women are asked to drop out of the race or wait their turn, or they're seen as splitting the vote or seen as detracting votes from the more viable candidate, which is usually the more status quo person, and the women are told to wait. Great, Denise.
Electability.
Yes.
So they aren't electable.
Absolutely. Eric.
Just piggybacking on Andy's comment, I had the opportunity to interview Congresswoman Mary Peltola from Alaska 2 weeks ago, who won as a Democrat. She was told to wait her turn. There were two progressive men, white male men ahead of her, and she did not have or earn the backing of Alaska's Democratic Party. So she had to raise her own money and do that outside. And she said, thanks to Final Four voting, she was able to run a successful campaign. So.
We love Mary Peltola's story, and we love collecting those stories. Thanks for sharing that, Eric. Any other ideas? You guys hit a lot of the really good ones. Fantastic. And I saw actually someone in the chat had a question. What is the OECD? This is a group of, what is the full, something economic, thank you. Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. This is a group of countries that have agreed to adhere to certain standards and certain ways of operating. Of course, trade agreements and things like that as well. But whenever we kind of compare ourselves to other countries kind of that are more maybe more similar to ours, we look at the OECD countries to see what's kind of comparative. Great question. Okay, fantastic. So yeah, so basically ranked choice voting is fantastic for representation because it addresses exactly those barriers. Of course, there are cultural barriers, there's misogyny, there's racism, there's a really, really big, there's, internal self-stigma and things like that, which a lot of organizations are working on by working with individuals. But in the system-wise, in the way that we elect our elected officials, ranked choice voting addresses all those key things. So I'm going to go through and kind of discuss these in just a little bit more detail. So the first one, ranked choice voting incentivizes positive issue-focused campaigns. The violence, we know that campaigns are negative and nasty and awful, and we hate them so much. We hate campaign season. We hate the ads. We're so sick of it. But there's an organization called She Persisted that did some research on the gender differences in like slur campaigns and negative campaigns. And the negative campaigns against women are just of a different nature. They're more personal, they're more violent, they're more sexual in nature, and they're sometimes they're kind of just really scary. And this is the number one reason actually why women report that they're not interested in politics. And if you would ask me why I'm not interested in running, this is exactly what I would say. Like, I'm not going to sign up for this. I'm just not interested in that. But with ranked choice voting, it's such a different story. And we have a quote here from New York City Council member Crystal Hudson about her experience running in her ranked choice voting race in 2021. And she says, what we saw throughout the campaign cycle was camaraderie and collaboration in a way that you just don't normally see on campaigns, both within districts, so against their direct competition, and across districts, which is just such an amazing testimony. And there's another story too. There's a couple examples. And if you know any examples, please share them with the group. Patricia Washburn, she's a woman that ran for office in Portland, Maine in 2020. And there were 4 first-time candidates on the ballot. Surely in a non-ranked choice voting race, they would have all been told to drop out or wouldn't have made it, but they were on the ballot, 4 first-time candidates, all women. And so that they formed what they called the Rose Slate. And they actually, to maximize the benefits of ranked choice voting, they realized that they would really benefit from running as a team. So they're running for the same position in this race, and they walked around, knocked doors together. Patricia is actually a woman in a wheelchair. So her Rose Slate team / competitors were actually helping her knock doors, get her name out there. They were, sharing with voters how amazing their competition was and why you should rank me first, but her second. And it's just a completely different story. And that's a huge barrier removal for women. And you can also see here just a little chart for some data folks out there. We can see this was the first time ranked choice voting was used since back in the day when ranked choice voting was used in a lot of places, but in modern times, you can really see the jump in the number of women on New York City City Council. In 1 year, they went from having like 28% women on their city council to 61% women on city council. And most of those women are women of color, which is exactly what New York City is. So that's what we love to see. Okay, so second benefit, as we discussed the vote splitting and the wait your turn issue. Well, ranked choice voting just eliminates that problem altogether. It's a non-issue. It's not a part of a ranked choice voting election. And so when parties are not having to tell women to wait their turn and women can actually get on the ballot, more women win. When voters don't feel like if they put their vote for this woman, their vote's going to be wasted, and because she might not win, and if she doesn't win, your vote's just gone. It's done. It's wasted. When voters don't have to worry about that, and when they can vote their conscience, who they really, really want, women are more likely to win. And we have this wonderful quote from Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows. She said, "Sometimes it seems like there's a party favorite, or sometimes somebody enters the race that has a significant amount of money, and ranked choice voting undermines the power of incumbency and the power of money. It levels the playing field." And when I reflect on my race for Secretary of State, I was the last person to enter the race. I was the only female to enter the race, but ranked choice voting gave me some hope. It gave me hope that people could cast their ballots based on who they thought would be best and not engage in strategic voting. And here's another little data snapshot highlight from Cambridge, Massachusetts, where actually of those cities, almost all the cities that repealed ranked choice voting back in the day, Cambridge, Massachusetts was the only one in the whole country that did not do so. So they've been using ranked choice voting since like the early 1900s. And this is their representation outcomes today. Very, very nice and balanced, just like we like to see. Okay, and then cost, the money issue. As I said, women don't only struggle to raise money more. Women don't only struggle more to raise money than men, but they need to raise more money to win than men do. So it's kind of like a double whammy. Women also really rely more on small donors. So they're really out there hustling and trying to collect these small donations, which just puts them at a strategic disadvantage. It takes more time, it takes more resources, it takes more energy to be going out there getting $10 at a time to raise enough money to run a viable campaign. So because ranked choice voting promotes positive campaigns, it helps women save money. And because it eliminates the need for expensive runoffs, it helps women save money. And this really helps all candidates. This is really a good thing for all candidates and for cities, for legislatures, for taxpayers, for all these people, but it uniquely impacts women in these specific ways. So we have New York City mayoral candidate Diana Morales. She says, candidates like me, political outsiders, first-timers, women of color, we are often overlooked during our races, and words like viability, which someone shared, viability and electability, which often, actually serve as code for those with wealthy networks or deep pockets. Those words serve as gatekeepers, even though most of us would agree that elected office should be accessible to everyone. Ranked choice voting has the potential to give voters real options and change the playing field for candidates like me. And one of our last little data snapshots is ranked choice voting in Utah. I believe it's used in 23 jurisdictions in Utah right now, maybe more. And you can see the comparison of women who are elected as mayor in Utah. I'm sorry. Oh, okay, I see. I'm so sorry. On the right is women who are elected as mayor. Sometimes we have ranked choice voting versus non-ranked choice voting, but this is just outcomes for all winners elected by ranked choice voting in Utah. And then this is specifically mayors. And there's more women mayors than average, which is nice to see, in my opinion. And then you might be wondering, like, okay, so these percentages look great when they're standalone, but how do they compare to non-ranked choice voting cities? Maybe it's the same. Well, here we have a side-by-side for you. So on the left, we have ranked choice voting elected city councils. In ranked choice voting cities, women make up 49%, men make up 51%, nice and balanced, just what we like to see. But on average of the 100 largest cities in the country, women only make up 33% and men make up 66%. And then it's the same comparison over here, but for mayors. And again, much more balanced in ranked choice voting cities. So, in RCV elected bodies, they're just more representative. And that's really the bottom line. So that covers the basics of our research on why ranked choice voting removes barriers for women in office. We just released this memo in January. So you guys can check that out. I will share this presentation with you all. These are linked, so you can click on those. But we have tons and tons and tons of research and tools and messaging and 2-pagers and handout, like so much stuff on our website for you guys to check out that you can use if you feel like this messaging is compelling in your city or in your town. If you feel like this is something that would be really useful for your efforts there in Ohio. And that's all for me. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Katie. Let's open this up to questions, but to start off, could you talk a bit about the intersectionality of how ranked choice voting reduces barriers and levels the playing field? Because we're seeing it not only for historically underrepresented groups like women, but also for people of color, for a more greater diversity of ideologies that had not previously been represented, young people as well. And I know that Represent Women talks a lot about the intersectionality. And so I want to make sure that we're hitting all those points.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out and drawing that out. Yeah, absolutely. For all the same reasons, because ranked choice voting gives voters more power and more choice, and because it makes politicians more accountable to voters and less accountable to party leaders, it just means that voters are empowered to vote for who they actually want. And they don't have to feel like if they put their vote towards this Black woman that, well, there's no way she's going to get elected, so then the bad guy is going to win. So I have to put my vote towards this other person if I want to help the good guy, to help the good team win. I can't put my vote towards this woman. It's just going to be, it just eliminates all of that. So the impact, we're actually doing a little bit more of a deeper dive into those intersectional identities and how it uniquely impacts, you know, each one of them. But yes, we absolutely find that women of color and people of color win at a higher rate with ranked choice voting than without. Yeah.
Thanks, Katie.
Great question.
We have more questions in the chat, or raise your hand, or feel free to come off mute. We've got some comments that this is a great presentation. People are eager to get a link to the slideshow. So thank you, Katie.
Yes, I will actually share the link right now.
Awesome.
I'm scrolling through the chat. Okay, good. Just want to make sure we didn't miss any questions. And if any other questions come up, just let me know. I'll share my email as well. Sorry, it's hard to type and talk at the same time. But yeah, thanks so much, everybody, for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. And we will have time for.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Sorry, I just this might be a little bit off topic, but just. I'm with the Forward Party here in Ohio, and we've just internally noticed that our demographic internally with the organization tends to lean towards men in a younger group that are white. So I'm just wondering if you have any advice on how to target maybe more women to get involved with our organization, because one of our big focuses is ranked choice voting. So I figured you might have some advice there.
I appreciate your question so much, Mark. And this is kind of like a little bit of a little Represent Women's side hustle, is to actually diversify the movement in general. And to not only, we don't want it to be a white-led movement. We don't want it to be a white male-led movement. We want it to be an inclusive, representative movement. So I really appreciate your thoughtfulness on this. Yeah, I can definitely send some, we're kind of working on actually some principles or like some norms that we would suggest organizations to consider internally adopting and talking about as a team. But from my personal experience and Represent Women's personal experience of also trying to diversify our team, once you have a few people from different communities on board, or you have built a relationship with them, they have all the networks. Like it's so important that you bring them in and you give them leadership positions and give them a role where they have a lot of power and say, and then just trust them to expand the horizon and kind of follow their lead. But like we reach out to HBCUs for hiring. We make sure that we get all of our JDs out to different forums that are, focusing on different target groups, really being intentional about where we're setting up booths and where we're doing, job fairs and kinds of things like that, and making sure that our job applications are accessible for people with disabilities as well. And we want to make sure that it's very, very clear that we want a diverse team, where that diversity is a priority for us, and that, it's a safe space and everyone's welcome.
Yeah, we're trying to be inclusive, and we do have some women and some people of color. It's just statistically, it's leaning one way. And I was just, I was trying to see if you had good ideas for that. But I like what you said, letting them lead and let them use their networks. That's probably the best thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for your question.
Thanks, Katie. And that also is a great point for us, that we need to be intentional about hiring diversity of these part-time organizers that we're working on recruiting now. And so we just put in the chat again the job description. We would appreciate everyone's help in spreading among your networks this opportunity. But we do have another question from Jim Warner, who is our Southwest Ohio chapter lead in Cincinnati. And he actually has two questions. One is, how has dark money been impacted by ranked choice voting? And another on, do you have data on legal challenges trying to fight ranked choice voting?
These questions for me?
I'm not sure.
Jim says yes.
Okay.
Jim, these are great questions. These aren't research things that we've dug into for our ranked choice voting and representation research. But these are really important questions. And actually, my intern recently asked me a similar question about dark money and the way that ranked choice voting might weaken the power of big money in campaigns. And I am sure that research is out there, but my intuition says that because ranked choice voting makes politicians more accountable to the people, that they have to actually deliver, that they become less accountable to big money. But that's maybe a very optimistic, hopeful. I don't know too much about dark money in politics, to be honest.
Yeah, I just wondered if ranked choice, as it gets more headlines, if it's going to be really targeted by dark money, because they would see that as a very direct threat.
Yeah.
I just put a link in the chat to a piece that we wrote specifically about how ranked choice voting can help reduce the influence of dark money and corruption here in Ohio. Relative to recent news in Ohio. I'm sure everyone's aware of the first energy scandal and how big money played a large role in that. And we think that in regards to some of the same dynamics that Katie was talking about how ranked choice voting levels the field in terms of how much money you need to actually run, when we're not stuck with these two parties where people are often running unopposed to get reelected. There's no mechanism for accountability there, as Katie said, because people don't have another option. They feel like they're wed to one party or another, and they're going to support that party's nominee no matter who they are, because they think that, oh, well, they may be corrupt, but at least they're not from the other side. Ranked choice voting totally changes that dynamic so that you can have a greater diversity of candidates compete against moneyed interests in order to hold those politicians accountable. Cool. We will have more time for questions and answers at the end. But Katie, you wanna, yep.
Yeah, not that like my opinion on this matters whatsoever, but I also do just want to say that I'm very excited to hear that Ohio is doing a ballot measure. I think that's absolutely the way to go. And I'm very happy that you guys, my fellow Ohioans, are like willing to roll up your sleeves and do the really hard, sweaty work of knocking doors and doing a grassroots campaign. I think that's really awesome. Keep up the great work, guys.
Thanks, Katie. We appreciate it. And that is a great handoff to Parker, who is our volunteer outreach, one of our volunteer outreach and mobilization co-leads. And Parker is going to tell us some ways that everyone on this call can help get involved.
Hey, everyone. So as mentioned, I'm Parker. I run the volunteer onboarding group, and there are several ways that we hope to get people into our organization working, because we hope to rapidly scale this year. First off, I'm going to plug me and also my sister team run by Danny. Between us, we are responsible for making sure that the people who ask to volunteer get put into the right places, and make sure that they get to the events and meetings that they need to be. So on my end, I do a lot of the talking through formally who we are and getting to know people and sorting them into the different teams. Danny does the phone banking, which is also making sure that we contact people who request to volunteer and also make sure that they are informed of any meetings that would be relevant to their interests and positions. They don't cold call. So they are calling people who've specified that they want to opt in. So both of us need help. Danny actually needs more than I do, but both of us are instrumental in making sure that the people who want to volunteer actually stick. We need that. The other volunteer needs that are most urgent right now involve spreading the word in several different venues and ways. For instance, speakers comes to mind. These are the people who can say in long form the virtues of ranked choice voting for audiences so that we can get converts and donations. Fundraising is the group that calls people and hopes to get converts and donations, and that's led by Denise Riley, who just gave a hearty wave. Canvassers, people who are willing to go out to local events and try to get converts and donations. You can either be one of those people or you can lead one of the groups. We've got room for both. And we have multiple of our captains and chapter leads on the call now. We've got Grace, we've got Jim. Who is the other one?
Vera's on vacation.
There we go. That's why I didn't see her. So all of these are places that we need help, and it is mostly about spreading the word of ranked choice voting. If you're here, I hope that you love it as much as I and we do. So please help us continue to spread and find more people who love it as much.
Thank you, Parker.
Yeah.
And so we put the link in the chat if you want to sign up to volunteer on one of our teams, but there are also other ways that you can get involved with outreach, especially as we are expanding our chapters on the local level. In our agenda, we have our canvassing kit, where if you are able to go to an event and maybe you go to regular meetings about other topics, or maybe you know that you're going somewhere where there's going to be a lot of people who might be interested in ranked choice voting, if you could take the sign up lists that we have, all you need is a clipboard. We have this QR code that you can point out. You just ask people, hey, do you know about ranked choice voting? You have that 2-minute conversation with them. And then you ask if they will sign up on our supporter list, because this is how we will prove that we have Ohioans who support ranked choice voting in Ohio, and that we are worthy of further investment to make a campaign viable here. And so our chapters are working on leading canvases throughout the state. And that's also why we are hiring part-time organizers to help lead these sorts of canvases as well, so that you aren't doing this on your own. We also have trainings on our calendar for how you can do that 2-minute pitch and how to answer basic questions when you're talking to folks. If you are not quite comfortable with going out in public yet, you can also be a digital organizer by sharing our petition page with groups that could be friendly to ranked choice voting. Invite all of your friends and family to sign that petition page, because that's another way of bringing in signups and growing that crucial supporter list to reach our 10,000 goal for the summer. And as we are getting closer to summer, we are going to be standing up not only regional chapters, but also local chapters. And so we have a page on our website that's in our agenda as well for how you can link first to regional chapters. And then as we get a crucial number of volunteers in cities and have help from local organizers across the state, we're going to be transitioning even to more local city-based chapters. Another tool that you have is our Talking Points Toolkit that's in the chat that has a range of answers to common questions about how to communicate about ranked choice voting in an effective way. And another way to do digital outreach is to follow us and tag us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, YouTube, across social media. The most effective way is when people hear about ranked choice voting from people they trust, whether it's in person or on social media, and you tag ranked choice voting, you hashtag ranked choice voting, and you tag Rank the Vote Ohio so that people know how to find us and how to get involved, and so that we can keep building our list. Now, in addition to all this grassroots power that we're building for outreach, we do need funding for our operations, especially now that we are hiring these part-time organizers with seed funding. We rely on grassroots support for all of our infrastructure that is going to need to expand to help with these canvases and to help with this outreach and to help make these positions sustainable. And so Denise is going to talk about our fundraising team and new opportunities to get involved on that front. Denise Riley, our team leads director.
Hi guys. So starting as of 2 o'clock today, we are officially selling our 50/50 raffle tickets. So the more tickets we sell, the bigger the pot. Woo! We'll be running that for an entire month. So we will be drawing it at 2:45 on March 19th during our March statewide meeting. The winners are drawn by the organizing website called Rally Up. So you can go to go.rallyup.com/RTVO and buy as many tickets as you want. And there's bonus tickets if you share it on social media. The funding for that raffle comes from if you purchase bonus tickets. If you make a purchase for bonus tickets, that will pay Rally Up for hosting our raffle. And then you can also donate directly, rtvo.org/donate, and recurring donations, even if it's as little as the amount of a cup of coffee, will help us secure our democracy. Has anybody ever been to like a Tupperware party or what's that, housewares party? But anyway, if you wanted to, you could host a house party like a Tupperware party, but for ranked choice voting. Invite all your friends, you come in, we have a little demonstration, and you don't have to do much of the work other than invite your friends. We will help you with everything. There's other ideas for fundraising. If you can come up with any, you can email me directly, driley@rankthevoteohio.org. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Denise. We have time for a final Q&A. If anyone has any questions, you can raise your hand or put them in the chat. But for next steps, our calendar is filled with events. Like we said earlier, that there are opportunities for pitch trainings to practice doing that 2-minute pitch to friends or families or even strangers about how to talk about instant runoffs with ranked choice voting. And then we have speaker trainings if you want to learn how to do the longer form formal PowerPoint presentations that we do to different groups. And there are also letters to the editor parties if you're maybe not as willing to speak in front of a group, but we can certainly use your help with messaging, with writing to local papers in order to help raise awareness and support. We also have a new volunteer orientations on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. that are led by Parker to help onboard you and get you situated on one of our teams. And our next statewide meeting you can already register for is going to be 1 month from today on Sunday, March 19th at 2 p.m. And our featured speaker is going to be Kevin Kosar from the American Enterprise Institute. And Kevin is actually from Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio originally, now is an expert on Congress and our political system based in DC. But he is going to be talking about how ranked choice voting can make our representatives more representative. So thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll be happy to stick around to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Katie. Excellent presentation. Also, thank you.
all.
Thank you, Eric, for representing Veterans for Political Innovation. And thank you, George, for representing BlackPAC.
Good luck, everybody. Excited to see what happens in Ohio.